We pick this song each and every time that Chris Landry's on because a lot of people don't know that he is a huge Rolling Stones fan, a huge Led Zeppelin fan, and a Run DMC fan. Those are his three favorite bands right there of all time. Chris, is that fair to say that you're a Zeppelin, Stones, Run DMC? Those are the top three?
Sure. I'll go with whatever you say, man. I'm sure they're good.
If for those that don't know,
I'm, I,
Chris is the one person that you will that we will have on the show that knows less about pop culture than me. So he is the one guy. So we are not your pop culture aficionados, but
mm,
we can talk football. Chris, last year I didn't cover the transfer portal. That we were kind of getting this whole website stuff up and running, and man, this is frantic and kind of fun. I don't know what it's like for you because you do consulting work with the NFL teams and you do scouting reports. What's it like for you? How has it changed Chris Landry's world? And if you don't go to LandryFootball.com to learn more about football, then you just lost your mind. Well worth the subscription. Check it out. But Chris, I mean, when you look at this transfer portal, I mean, it's flying. It just opened Monday. Tennessee has three commitments and they're flying everywhere.
well, it's chaotic. I think it's maybe fun for everybody, but the people that work in football that are coaches and everything, because I think it's fun for the fans. I think they think, oh, great players are in the portal. Let's go get them, and they have no idea who can play and who can't. So one of the things we try to do, and we keep track of all the folks that are. But what we try to do, and we got something on Landry football. Though I've got like 35 guys that was as of yesterday, and I'll add to it as guys go in. These are the guys that I think are really good, that I think can help people. There are others because they're going to come in, but that's what you got to focus on. Yeah, because 1,000 guys go in the portal in 24 hours. Most of them can't help you, can't play, and they're in the portal. Excuse me, because they're not good enough to. They either been pushed in the portal, or they see that they're not good enough, or they feel that they're better than they are, and so it's a lot like NFL free agency. You can help yourself by filling in a couple of needs. But if you're going to build a program through the portal, you're not going to be successful. You're not going to be consistently successful, because what you're getting guys that, again, it's one of a few things. They're not real competitive because they don't want to stay and try to win a job. They want to go where it's maybe a better opportunity. Well, that's not real good. If they're not good enough, and maybe they were ranked with a lot of stars, but that just only means what type of a potential they have. How good a player they are is that, plus how hard you work, how committed you are. And look, it's just a byproduct of today. Guys want things to be given to them more than having to earn them. So I say it's be careful, and I think the elite programs, you will see a number of them send guys into the portal, and they'll try to fill in needs. But I think it's about, to me, it's about trying to figure out which ones are the right fits, and it's a challenge, and it's a real challenge, which is why all these staffs are so big now, guys, because you have to study college players like NFL teams study pro players. It's like part of in my consulting business that I've done the past couple of years. This has been a big help to my work, is that I've trained college programs how to set up what we call a pro personnel system, which is studying other college players. Because you can't sit there and say, oh, wow, this guy went in the portal. Let's break out the tape and watch him, and then let's see if we want him. You gotta have studied that for a long time at this point. So when a guy gets in the portal, you already know, yay or nay, we want to go after the guy or not. And obviously 95% of the time it's nay, because there are too many players in the portal, and most of them in the portal for a reason.
Let
So,
me
Chris, I want to talk about. Oh, sorry, Dave. Were you going to say something?
No, that's fine. I was just gonna let everybody know that Thursday night football tonight to get out to Big Orange Phillies, have a fantastic time. Big Orange Phillies is family friendly. They have billiards, they have darts, they have fantastic food. So over the weekend as well, we're in bowl season, so just plan on going as soon as you get off work, like at 5 o'clock every day. Big Orange Phillies on Maynardville Pike. It is close to North Knoxville and close to Maynardville, so it's a great place to hang out. Should be very happy that you have a place like Big Orange Phillies there. Mr. Viles does a great job. I'm sorry, Caleb. Go right ahead.
It's okay. Chris, about it's funny. About a decade ago, before all this kind of started with the transfer portal, I saw Dabo Swinney as an example of a program on the rise because he seemed so player friendly. And one of the examples of him being player friendly was if a player didn't win a starting job at Clemson, he kind of encouraged them to go to the transfer portal, and he seemed like he was just trying to help the player out for his future. I feel like it's reversed now. I feel like now coaches are going to start abusing that, encouraging players to enter the portal, as you said, to fill their own needs, not really caring about what's best for that player who may not be able to go somewhere else. And if they enter the portal, they just lost a scholarship. They may not land somewhere else. And now they may not even get an education at the end of the day.
Well, that's the unintended consequences of, well, let's just let players go anywhere they want. Sounds great, player friendly, right? No, you're right. It's, you sit there and tell guys, look, your future here, this is kind of how we see you. And basically telling them you got to kind of move on. Nobody really does it quite like, Deion did it publicly in front of a camera and saying it the way he did it. But there's a lot of that is you're not as good as we thought you were. And you haven't progressed like we thought. So we're going to use your scholarship somewhere else. So this is what we're advising you to do. And yeah, it gives the school a chance to take that scholarship and reuse it again. Another bite at the apple to see if we can make the other guy work. So it's not player friendly. It's player friendly for the ones that players that maybe people have a familiarity with, maybe some of the bigger name guys. Well, those guys can move on and go somewhere else. But it's the majority of them that you maybe don't know their names. You're right. Most of them don't have a home to go to. And it's always usually having to go down a level and sometimes two levels. And some of them are even in non-scholarship programs. So that's why it is difficult, because some of them are not making a decision to go into the portal. Some of them are basically kind of pushed into it. And
It's
that's a
Chris.
problem.
Yeah, no, Chris. It reminds me of people used to say you can't pull a scholarship from a prospect who maybe flounders in his senior year. You don't have to. You just stop calling him, and then he figures out that, oh, they don't like me anymore, and I'm not going to play there. And usually he decommits.
Well, for people who are a little younger may not know, when I was a recruiting coordinator, I mean, this is how it worked. You never offered scholarships. I mean, it was rare. You might have, and I mean really rare, you might have one or two guys in the summer prior to their senior year that you might have offered a scholarship to.
Right.
You didn't offer scholarships until their senior year. No one did. That was a big, important part of the evaluation process of the player. I mean, you telling me you're not going to evaluate his senior year in high school before you offer him a scholarship? Well, guess what? Now that you're offering them early, there are two things that happen. One, you're going to miss on guys more. You're not evaluating their senior year because you offer them before then. And so if a player gets better, which a lot of them do, some of them level out, which a lot of them do, you've maybe made a wrong decision on, well, we think these three guys are better than these three guys now. And so you have to deal with that. But when you back then, you waited. You not only had a chance to evaluate it more, you can evaluate the person more. They could get to know you longer as a staff, and you could get to know their family better. So when you waited and you basically made the entire process more of an evaluation process, then you didn't pull a scholarship, because at that point it was considered, you know, a low integrity move, and kind of just not something. It was, you were persona non grata. Well, now with the early commitments and doing all this early, you're going to make more mistakes. You're not going to know the kid as well, and the kids are not going to know you as well. Well, then you're going to make more mistakes. And well, what's going to happen with that? Well, you get in the senior year, you don't absolutely 100% know that you're going to stay committed to that kid, or that kid's going to stay committed to you. It's kind of where things are now. It's just that, look, it's in society. How many people in the old days worked for a company for 30 years? Now, I mean, people change jobs on average. I've read somewhere 2.5 years. It's just a different world, and the recruiting world has been reflective of that. And it really all started with, like, when we had camps, you couldn't bring prospects to camp. I mean, if they came to camp, on their own, and you did, but you didn't evaluate them. I mean, it wasn't, that became what this is what we're going to do. We're going to evaluate him. So in the end, what is considered, well, this is a good thing for the kid. They can commit early. That's great. Well, then the whole process is shift to where it's a little bit sooner. So now you get kids coming into college sooner. They're leaving college sooner, and the whole process has been pushed up. And when it's pushed up this far, you're going to make more mistakes. You're going to make more mistakes, then you're going to have this. Okay, well, now you got the portal. You can move on from guys now, and you can go get other guys. And so, okay, you misevaluated a guy. You can go get a guy that has now performed well in college, or late bloomers that are playing at a lower level that, hey, it's really good. They got a kid at Harvard that I think is really good. They've got a kid at Shorter College who's a tight end that I think is outstanding. I mean, those guys weren't recruited, for some of them, because they were late bloomers. So it's a different way of doing it now.
Yeah, and in the case of McAllen Castles, he hasn't even visited Knoxville and is committed. Have you had a chance to look at him? What do you think of him, the tight end that Tennessee brought in yesterday as a commitment?
Yeah, well, my friend Dan Hawkins, I don't know if people remember Dan. He coached at Boise State and Colorado and all that. He coached them, and I've seen a little bit of tape on him. I've actually seen 2 games of him this year. That's all I've seen. He was limited in one of the games they played, but he's a junior at UC Davis. He's a very productive kid at that level. He was a guy that I've looked at as someone that has some potential. He's 6'5", he's 233. He's a pass receiving tight end. I think he's got some growth room, and I think he's got potential to maybe even be a next level player. I thought he was, one of the, I think there are about 3 of tight ends out of the Big Sky Conference that were pretty good tight ends that were pretty good. He was one of them, and so I think he's the guy that can help. He'll fit, because he'll fit that kind of that flex tight end mode that they'll play. But he's from South Lake Tahoe in California, and and he was a pretty good high school player who just kind of went to Cal and then went away. So he was one of those guys that was a pretty good high school player. He wasn't a late bloomer, so to speak, but he's just kind of moved on and developed pretty nicely there.
The other one I'm going to ask you about, I'm assuming the kicker will show up, and he'll either do well or he won't, and he'll either be Tennessee's kicker or he won't. That's just kind of the way kickers work. But the other one came last night, a little bit later, and you can read about him on offthehooksports.com. And Tennessee is able to pick up 3 commitments in one day, and this one is Larry Johnson III. I don't know if he's a relation to Grandmama, who played for the Hornets. Because see, I know my guy Chris knows NBA too. I don't think there's any relation to that Larry Johnson. But what do you think?
I don't think so. I don't know. I'm gonna check my notes here, but I don't think he is. You know what? Good on you, because I remember him very obviously. I remember Larry Johnson in UNLV days, but I didn't even think about that, to be honest with you. But yeah, he's a big old guy. He's from Georgia, from Savannah, if I can recall. He's a big kid. He's 6'7", 350. He's a really physical guy, as you might imagine. little bit of a waist bender, a little bit stiff, but they like him as a pass protector. So I didn't, coming out. I remember there are not a lot of big time programs really committed, and even at this point, I think I'm trying to think. I think it was Syracuse and Houston. I think Charlotte, which they got a new coach. I think they and maybe Florida Atlantic were the schools that recruited him, along with Tennessee. So a little bit more. I don't. To me, I know he had some issues. Went to Hutchinson Community College in Kansas. Um, yeah, I don't know off the film and off the background. I'm not as excited about him, but we'll see. I don't know as
Can
I haven't really seen. I just don't see the foot quickness at tackle, but maybe it's a little tall to play inside, but we'll see what their plans are for.
Yeah, can a guy that size play in a tempo based system like what Hypo runs? That just I've never thought that was possible.
Well, again, and I haven't seen them, and I don't know. I do worry a little bit. Now, remember, offensive linemen don't run very far. They block, and the most running they do is when they got a 12-yard gain and they got to run 12 yards to get to the line of scrimmage. But to your point, it's not like defensive linemen. Defensive linemen is the most physically taxing position in football, because you got to chase and run hard for 12 seconds. And then if you got to play a tempo offense and you got to run in and do it again, I would question a little bit. I have not seen him in person, so I don't know how that 350 looks. You know what I mean? There's 350 and there's 350. He's 6'7", so there's a good possibility that he could be in pretty good shape and still carry that 350. But I would imagine there's some trimming off of that they're probably going to need to do, because I do think the tempo does have an effect. But you're going to have to. Most of these guys coming out of high school, most of these guys are going to have to. To prepare for this, conditioning is going to be a big part of it. The cardiovascular work is going to be even bigger when you're playing a tempo style offense. But a lot of guys are doing that in high school now. So,
yeah. And then Alabama. Correct me if I'm wrong. But they're having a pretty active transfer portal in terms of guys going out. What insight can you give us to that? And who do you like?
Well, there's some guys that are talented, and I can't speak for every one of them. I really can't, and it may take a while to know, but there's rarely a guy that leaves that program that they want to stay. They're really good. They're the best at explaining the guys to not leave early for the draft or to not go in the transfer portal if they want them. Now, they don't tell Bryce Young and Will Anderson to not, they'll tell them, look, we love you to stay. It's better for you to go. You're going to be drafted high. But
yeah,
they're really good at that. So I would say it's just be really careful there, because you're getting a lot of highly rated guys with a lot of stars, but they make mistakes too in the evaluation process. So, like, for example, if you're excited about Tommy Brockermeyer, I don't know what happened. I know his dad. I scouted his dad, Blake Brockermeyer, at Texas. He was in that Baselli draft, and he was outstanding. And his sons haven't done. They haven't busted a grape since they've been on Alabama's campus. So, you and that's been a problem on that offensive line. So you got to wonder, if you're not getting developed there, you got to make sure that you know what you're getting. So, if you're, I remember Jahil Billingsley left, and Texas brought him in, and then they've got some guys that are really talented. But I know of, not all of them, but I know about 3 of them that they're really good, that they really liked. Couldn't get them to show up time for meetings. It couldn't. So you're dealing with a lot of stuff. So I just, be careful, because not many people run away from those type of programs. It's not like there's some places the rat's leaving the ship and things are not good and coaches are leaving and, the position coach, but I'd be very leery. It's enticing to say big 4-star guy, but you got to you got to do your homework and kind of figure out what is the reason behind every one of those.
So basically what you're saying is for every Alvin Kamara, there's probably 20 other dudes.
Yes, and Alvin is a perfect example of a guy that just didn't do a whole lot. And to be honest with you, Alvin is still kind of, he's matured more, but he's still kind of a guy that kind of does things his way, even in the NFL. He's extremely talented. And, for Butch, I know what happened with him. But with Butch is Alvin didn't practice hard. He, when he had to get rehab in the training room, he didn't do it. So he was a guy that was hard to coach, but he was really talented. And when he goes on and has a great NFL career, and particularly when you're Butch Jones and you get fired and everything, you say, well, what a dope. Well, I think the key is why couldn't you reach him? But Alabama didn't either. They had some issues there. So, but look, I go all the way back to Randy Moss. Let me remind you that Randy Moss went to Notre Dame, and Lou Holtz said, "I can't deal with this guy." So he sent him to his good friend Bobby Bowden at Florida State, and Bobby is as easy on players, kind of letting them ride, be their own person type as much as any of the really good coaches. And Bobby Bowden said, "Boy, I'm sorry, but you got to go. We got to send." And that's when he left and went home to Marshall. And we know what Randy Moss became. At some point, maybe they figure it out. But there's always that criticism of, well, why didn't Lou Holtz and Bobby Bowden? My God, how many? He had Dion, he had T-Buck, he had a lot of those guys that were edgy guys and all that. He couldn't reach Randy Moss. Eventually, Randy matured enough to have a great career. So you never quite know what it is with guys that sometimes you think it's, well, the coach's fault, and coaches, we're responsible, but you can lead the horse to water sometimes.
Randy's just a weird bird too. Like he applied for. I remember reading this, and he applied for a special exemption so that he could move into a retirement home, not a retirement home, but a retirement village. And you had to be 55 or older, but he really liked the pond in the front. So here are all these people that are my age and your age, Chris, and older, that are in their 60s and they're driving by, and
driving by in golf carts, and Randy's jogging with his Nike up. Yeah,
you swipe the card to get in, and the gate goes up, and then who's that over there fishing in the pond? That he had to actually put in an application so he could fish in the pond. And that's just Randy Moss over there, NFL All-Pro, casting a rod.
I never heard that story. That's great. That's weird. I told Randy, I've seen Randy a few times, and I said, gotta hand it to you, because we were kind of criticized in Tennessee with the Titans by passing them up. We drafted Kevin Dyson that year.
Oh, I remember that.
Who's a really good receiver. He went to Super Bowl and with him, and he's had a good career. But we had Randy Moss. I had him way up at the very top of the draft board. We had what we called a shield. We had a color shield that would indicate that character or medical or mental or something. And he had the character shield. I told him, I said, Randy, and this is after the thing, I said, I got to admire you. I said, you really straightened out your life. And I had questions that you would do that you would be able to do that. And he said, well, thanks, homie. That's what he told me. He told me. But, it's like people say, well, why did, there is a lot of things that went on with Randy that were, it was a mile long. It wasn't just where he was an attitude guy. He literally when he was young in West Virginia, he was about 30 seconds away from you not even knowing who Randy Moss is, being in jail for the rest of his life. He was beating a guy over the head with a pipe, and the guy survived because some of his friends pulled him off. But so he'd have been, whatever they charged with. So there's a lot of things. The rap sheet, and we was our first year at Tennessee, and we're sitting there, as you guys know, you live there. Yeah, all right. The first year, our first draft, we're going to draft a guy in the Bible Belt that had not only that, but some of the other issues with females. We're going to draft that guy. Oh, yeah, that would have gone over real well. And our owner would have really loved that, too, I'm sure.
Did you hear the story? And Caleb, I know you want to jump in here, but just real quick, did you hear the story that was told on Monday Night Football about how he visited Tennessee during the Manning? It was during the Manning cast.
And
I don't know that I buy that story. That seems to me like Tennessee had some character issues, concerns as well. Do you?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what would happen. The whole thing about Peyton was late driving in, or he was somewhere and he was late coming in to pick him up. He was going to be the host, but yeah, look, Randy was a character issue, and with all due respect, when particularly Lou Holtz, but particularly Bobby Bowden say you gotta go, that's all. That tells you right there. That's the biggest red flag that you have. And to be honest with you, and Randy did tell me this. And this goes to show you how you can take a situation and you take a guy like that and you put him in a different situation. Randy might not have been successful because that was, we talk about formative years for a child. Well, he's not a child, but they're formative years for a player, character-wise. He went to Minnesota. Danny Green was a mentor.
Yep.
Chris Carter was a mentor. Chris Carter had all sorts of problems, and it straightened out his life. And if he's not there, like if he'd have been with us,
or the or the Cowboys,
the Cowboys, where Jared has said, "Man, go do what you." I don't know. Once he figured it out and he realized that what life was about, and life was more than what he grew up in, it was different. It was different. I remember when my head coach and GM, they wanted to draft Lawrence Phillips over Eddie George. And I fought like hell for Eddie George, pardon my French, because I got to know Lawrence Phillips pretty well. And I knew that I asked him, it's not funny. I don't know. It was shocking, a nervous laugh. But when I asked him, never met his father, never met his mother. The person who was closest to in his life was his brother, who had been incarcerated in the Los Angeles State Penitentiary for like 15 years. That's the person who was closest to. And, it was a disaster waiting to happen. In Nebraska, during the season, he had all sorts of problems at Nebraska, but they confined it and all of that. And, he did all sorts of bad things. But when you take a guy like that and he's got money and he's got an off season and he doesn't have structure, man, that's like, throwing up, piece of paper in a hurricane and think you're going to catch it. It's just like herding cats. There's just no way. But anyway.
Yeah, just a quick funny tidbit. It's very ironic, Chris, that you guys didn't draft Randy Moss your first year going to Tennessee, because 5 years later, 3 hours west, the Memphis Grizzlies become the first pro team in Memphis. They make a trade to sell tickets for White Chocolate, Jason Williams, who was Randy Moss's teammate at DuPont High School in West Virginia. They were basketball teammates, lost the state title to Martinsburg. Just wanted to throw that tidbit in there.
And I think you guys know that the state of Tennessee, it's like Memphis and like Knoxville, or even Memphis and Nashville. They could just soon be in different states. They're nothing like one another. That could happen in Memphis, by the way. You could, because but in the Bible Belt, and you know what I'm saying, just kind of the affluent Nashville and even in East Tennessee and country, Memphis is is like a whole different state. So yeah, no, it is ironic, and but we had that because we played in Memphis one year. But Dave, I don't know if you agree with that, but I always thought like
Oh,
Memphis was a completely different state. It was like
oh yeah.
you were still in the same state, but it was like a different world.
Yeah, you see as many, and even with college football recruiting, you almost see as many Ole Miss and Arkansas license plates as you do Tennessee. Yeah, it's a way different
Being from
place.
there, you see more.
Yeah, I mean, let me ask you this, Chris, because I've just pounded the drum, and some people like to rip me on Twitter, and that's all well and good that Tennessee should get a quarterback in the transfer portal. So I'm going to throw a couple of names at you, and then I got a surprise name, and I know you need to get rolling, so I won't.
No. Whatever. I go on and on. So I'm here as long as you need me.
A couple of names I just want to throw at you that Tennessee could go after, and I'm not saying that Nico's going to be a bust, but I do have concerns about Joe Milton from the get. Taven Jackson has not had experience, so you're going into a season in which the quarterback position is so important. One of these three guys could do a Hendon Hooker and be a Heisman finalist. I'm not writing them off. So if you're listening, that's not what I'm doing. But I am saying that you have a lot of inexperience there. Couple of names that I ran across that I just wanted to throw at you that I thought would be interesting for Tennessee to look at. Devin Leary, NC State, Hudson Card of Texas. You know me, I've got thick skin. If you think those are just stupid ideas, tell me. And then I've got one that's way out of left field that I'm hearing rumblings on that might enter the portal. But what do you just think about those two guys?
Well, first of all, to bolster your point, people don't. You better have another quarterback. You better have three of them. I mean, you better have a pair and a spare. Because I mean, what if he gets injured? I mean, you better have guys. In this day and age of the transfer portal, and certainly injuries are. Oh, you better have options because you can turn around and it's a problem. You could have two injuries like this. I mean, I saw a team this year go through four quarterbacks, with injuries. So now you need to get good ones. I think both of them would be great. Hudson Card, I like a lot. I think Devin Leary can. Now, here's the thing on Devin Leary. He's not going to really throw into the spring. So, so you got to be comfortable that he's medically going to be okay. But I like both of them. Hudson Card is somebody that I think you get some. I mean, I think that maybe Alabama or Georgia may look at him too. So I think that would be really good. I think the kid Davis Brent of Tulsa is one that you ought to look at. I'm trying to think who else that I had that I picked that I thought would be interesting. Now he's more of a move the pocket guy. Austin Reed, that's the other Austin Reed from Western Kentucky. Those guys I think are really good. Now he's a grad transfer. Now Austin to me would be really good because he's an experienced guy and he could be a really good backup, but also be somebody that could start for a while. Now, again, he's going to want to look at an opportunity where he's the clear starter. So everybody's going to look at the Tennessee situation and see what they have and see what they got coming back. And so that's going to factor into it. But ideally speaking, a guy like Austin Reed would be a great pickup for a guy that can be you don't look at them as mentors, but he could start if they need to. He doesn't need a whole lot of reps, because he's much more experienced in practice. I'm talking about to be successful. So those are some that I've thought of for Tennessee, but we'll see what level of interest there is both ways.
Give me those again real quick, if you don't mind.
Austin Reed of Western Kentucky is really good. And Davis, Davis Brin of Tulsa.
He doesn't pronounce his name right.
Huh? Yeah, no.
Mine's spelled the same way, and it's Davis.
Yeah. What did I say? Davis Brin? Yeah, it's Davis Brin. The last name is Brin.
Oh, okay. I thought you said maybe it was pronounced Davis. Okay.
Actually, I have heard pronounced Davis, but let's go with Davis.
Well, I'll just have to call him and straighten him out.
Yeah, you just call him DB. That's what everybody does now. DB, what's up? Come on over here. Those are two guys. Tulsa's outstanding. You want to go and watch him play against Ole Miss this past year. He was very, very impressive. You know, you had he's the both of them are in the 6'2", 210-pound mode, so they're not the ideal pocket guys. I think they would fit nicely, but I don't know that's where
Uh,
Josh would go.
Can I throw one at you that
Please.
I heard? He's not in the transfer portal, but I heard that he might be. I heard that he was upset how he was utilized this year, and now he has leverage. And you're smiling. You can see where I'm going, I think. A guy that had a pretty good end of the season that's already transferred once. I've heard some rumblings that maybe Spencer Rattler might look at the transfer.
Oh, really?
I've
Now I'm going to tell you, he certainly Tennessee fans will love him because they saw what he did, and he played 2 weeks in a row very well. He scares me in terms of in this offense. If he reverts back to throwing the football up for grabs, turning it over, what a disaster that would be. So that is a boomer bust guy there. I'd be a little weary of that. Might be a boom, but just as big of a chance, just might be a bust. Now I have heard, and I don't know this. I'll throw this out. I haven't really verified it, but since we're in the rumors, let's keep an eye out for. And I don't think this would be a really good fit for Tennessee because of his age. But Ty Simpson, the 5-star quarterback, he came down to Clemson, and but now his dad, for some reason, did not like Tennessee, and I don't know what maybe that's changed or whatnot, but obviously Tennessee background, state of Tennessee background, but he's a young guy, kind of in that same grade level as Nico, so I don't know that that's a fit. I think someone that's a little bit more of an older guy makes sense because, to your point, what if Nico's not quite ready? What if it takes a little time? I mean, you're basically in. It's not like they can turn around and do something different. If they're not clicking on all cylinders at quarterback, I mean, this is an average program. I mean, it's just it's go to a decent bowl game or whatever. But what you saw this past year doesn't happen because they're not a team that can, some teams can hide their quarterback for a certain amount of games and still win in other ways. Tennessee's, they've got to be lighting it up. So you better sell the idea that, hey, this is a quarterback place to come and learn. And, we need to, for Tennessee, you need to get as many of them as you can there because that's your key to winning.
Chris, throwing heat as always. If you don't join LandryFootball.com, you are absolutely insane. Chris, thank you, sir. I appreciate it, buddy.
Hey, thanks so much. Have a good one.
That was good stuff.
Have a good one, Chris.
Chris Landry, man, we got it churned up a little there between Ty Simpson and Spencer Rattler. I'm in. Bring Spencer Rattler in the locker room.